All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we are talking about the elements of a story. By the end of this lesson, we should be able to identify the elements of a story. But before we get started, I want to know what you know. What are the elements of a story? What are they? What are they? What are elements of a story? Just tell me what you think they are. What are elements of a story? I just want to know what you know. What are elements of a story? I would like to thank Ahmed for being in charge of my chats. Be sure to answer the question right here on Nearpod. What are the elements of a story? And there is no right or wrong answer here. We're just checking for background knowledge. Let's see what we know. So if you see any on here that you agree with on the collaboration board, feel free to go and heart it. Go and like them. Let them know that you agree. All right, so let's take a look. So I see that we have some um some plots. Do we agree that plot is elements of a story? Do we agree with that? Y'all can let me know in the chat. Settings, do we agree? Okay. Theme, do we agree? Okay. I see some themes here. Plots, themes. Hermione? Oh, it's okay. Uh-oh. So I see some five elements. Is it character, plot, theme, setting? So I see a lot of character, plot, themes, settings, and even beginning, middle, end. Like I can see why we would think that that's an element of a story because all stories definitely have a beginning, middle, and an end. And we do see that in elements of the story when we're looking at plot. So we'll look at plot on Wednesday. Okay. But we're missing one. So we know that there's five, and I'm seeing quite a few. Oh wait, nope, we're not missing it. I'm missing it. So the elements of a story are simply character, setting, plot, theme, conflict, right? So those are the five elements of a story. So let's take a look. First things first, setting. What is it, Hermione? When we're talking about the setting, what is it? Yeah, absolutely. So our setting describes where a story takes place, right? But when we look at setting, we're not just talking location. We're talking about the time frame. We're talking about the place, and it does help us build background knowledge. So it could be the time of day, So if I said yesterday afternoon in a rainy day in Wisconsin, we know it was during the afternoon. We know that it was a rainy day in Wisconsin. Okay. So when we talk about the setting, we're also talking about scenery as well as weather and, you know, the time historically as well. Next, characters. When we're talking about characters, we know that a character is a person, or sometimes it can be an animal, and they're primarily the people that really that the entire literary work is centered around, and they're main characters, as well as just regular characters. So when we're looking at characters, there's two kinds. The protagonist. Does anyone know what a protagonist is? Hollywood. Yep. It could be, but sometimes the main character can be an antagonist. What is a protagonist? You guys on Zoom can tell me in the chat. Yes, it is a main character, but it's a specific kind of main character. Happy? It's like the good guy in the story. Yes. So the protagonist is a main character, but the protagonist is the good guy. Okay. The protagonist is the character that you're like, yes, that you want to win, typically like the hero at the end of a text. Now, when we're looking at the antagonist, which is the opposite of a protagonist, what's an antagonist? Chris? The bad guy. So if we're speaking in terms of Harry Potter, Harry is the protagonist. He's the good guy, right? But Voldemort is he who must not be named is the antagonist. He's the bad guy. And it just depends on the story because sometimes Draco Malfoy is the antagonist. Lucius Malfoy, textbook antagonist. Dumbledore, protagonist. So, depending on who you ask. So, your antagonist is the good guy, the protagonist is the bad guy. But you do need to know that when we're talking about characters, the author allows us to get to know the characters through a number of ways. Physical descriptions, through their actions, through the things that they say, as well as their inner thoughts. You can get to know a person by what they're thinking, and the authors oftentimes allows us to take journeys through the thoughts of the characters. So the next one is conflict. Conflict. When we're looking at conflict, we are talking about any problem that the characters may have, okay? Any problems. And sometimes the conflict can be a struggle between two people or two things. And the main character is typically on one side of conflict. So there's two kinds of conflict. External conflict. What do you think external conflict is? You can tell me in the chat or you can tell me in here. External conflict. Hermione? It's like when there's a conflict with someone else, or it can also be with something like that. Absolutely. So external conflict is when you have conflict with others or with nature. So I have a problem with Luigi because every time I play with him on Mario Kart, I lose. External conflict because Luigi makes me lose, okay? External conflict. Gianna ate my lunch. So now I'm hungry. External conflict, okay? The second one is internal conflict. What do you think that means, Key? Internal conflict. And you guys can tell me in the chat, what do you think internal conflict means? So Ena said that internal conflict is conflict in the main character's mind. Josh said that conflict is when you have conflict like with your own problems, like problems with yourself. Would you agree with that, Key? Yeah. So Antonio said the same. So an internal conflict is an issue that is going on inside of here. Okay. Maybe your heart is maybe in your mind. So like, I really want to eat that candy bar, but I know that I shouldn't. But the candy bar is so delicious. But I've been eating healthy so long, like I don't want to ruin my new healthy lifestyle change. But man, how can I say no to chocolate? Especially with that's a conflict that I have all the time. So it's internal, like an issue that you have within yourself, whether it's like low self-esteem, low self-confidence. Those things are internal conflicts. Okay. So go ahead. What are the two major types of conflict? Tell me in Nearpod. The two major types of conflict. What are they? What are they? I agree, Malika. The two major conflicts. What are they? That's your hint. All right, so I have a few answers here. So this student stated that internal conflict is problems with your mind or with yourself. External conflict, problems or situations with other people. Do we agree with this? Y'all can tell me in the chat. Yes, no, we agree, we disagree. Yes. So when we're talking about, I do want to mention that external conflict is also like conflict with nature. So, for example, I had a beautiful wash and go, and then it rained yesterday, so then my hair just poofed back up. That's an issue with nature. So, when we talk about conflict, you can have conflict with nature or even society as well. So, thank you so much, whoever shared this. We agree here. Internal and external, we good with that? Is it okay if I move on? All right. So the next element of a story that we're going to look at is plot. And today I'm just giving you an overview because we will dive into these individually. So when we take a look at plot, you should note that there are 5 parts to the plot similar to elements of a story. So whoever my beginning, middle, end person, here you go. You're right here. You got it. You were way ahead of the class. So when we talk about the plots, we're talking about the events in the story. And your plot does outline your beginning, middle, and end. But also, we talk about our climax. So the exposition, beginning, the rising action, the climax, the big boom, the falling action, and then the resolution, the end. And again, we will dive into this Wednesday. So let's see how good your memory is. This. It's, it's okay. I got you. Fill in the blank. So, how many elements of a story are there? Are there? You can tell me in the chat. How many elements of a story are there? How many? How many elements of plot are there? Five. Maybe. There we go. Oh, I got two out of two correct. All right, next is theme. Theme is the meaning behind events and characters in the text. When we talk about theme, we're talking about a central idea or a message or a lesson that the author wants you to learn. And it's like a general statement about people or life, okay? So that leads us to our text for the day. This text is called The Necklace. Now, the necklace, you guys are ahead of the class because the necklace is not a text that I saw until I think maybe ninth grade, maybe 10th grade, one of them, high school. So we are ahead of the class. So we're going to read The Necklace. And The Necklace is written by Guy de Maupassant. He is a French writer. He wrote stories that were both realistic and pessimistic. He is the king of a plot twist, okay? His stories never end the way that you think they will. So you could be reading his stories and you think you got it figured out and you don't. The necklace is probably one of his most widely read texts. Um, and oftentimes you can tell that he's interested in the psychology of his characters. So he is a really cool author, and I'm really excited to share his work with you. So the setting of the necklace happens to be Paris. So it's located in France during the late 1800s. And one thing you need to know before reading this is that they had a class system back then. Are you guys familiar with the class system? Because we kind of have one in the US today, but it was a different type of social stratification back then. Anyone want to share out loud? You can unmute, I'll mute so that you can unmute. The class system, what is it? Go ahead, I'll mute so that you can unmute. Speak louder, go ahead. Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. So Hermione just stated that the class system happens like, and it's kind of like the diagram that is on your screen. So it's almost like a triangle. So at the very top of your triangle, you have the elite class or the rich people. Below that, you have upper class. And those people too have money, but they may not be as rich as the elite class, but they're still fairly rich. Then you have the middle class where they're not rich, but they're living kind of comfortably, okay? They're not struggling, they're comfortable. Then you have the lower middle class. And lower middle class are again people that go to work every single day, so they're not necessarily poor, but they work for everything that they have. Then you have the poorer class, and the poor class are those people that may be homeless or unemployed or work jobs that don't pay as well as a lower middle class job, if you will. So these are the caste systems. So it's very important that you know that this is very prevalent in the text that we're getting ready to read. And this is also relevant because today's society that we live in, we do have a poor class, we do have working class Americans, we do have rich Americans. So we fall somewhere. However, the difference is like we can move up and down the class system. Okay. Any questions about that? And, all right. I'm seeing some hearty no's, so I'm going to move forward. So now what you guys are going to do, you're going to go to Egg Puzzle and you're going to read the necklace. Okay. But before you do that, I wanted to show you something. Hold on one second.